Lisa Lopez, better known as Left Eye, was one of those rare stars who owned the 90s with her fearless style, killer rap verses, and unforgettable personality. As the fiery rapper of the legendary girl group TLC, she was the perfect mix of wild creativity and raw talent. Everyone loved her for that quirky energy, her signature eye tattoo, hence the nickname, and her willingness to speak her truth no matter what. But sadly, her bright star burned out way too soon on April 25, 2002, in a tragic car crash in Honduras that shocked fans worldwide. So let's dive into what happened that day, because it wasn't just any accident. It was a moment that still haunts many who admired Lisa. At the time, Lisa was in Honduras on a trip that was pretty close to her heart. She'd been working on charity projects there and was trying to connect with the country's culture and spirituality. It was a place she loved and wanted to give back to. On that day, she was driving her Mitsubishi Montero Sport SUV near the city of La Ceiba, a beautiful coastal town known for gorgeous beaches and, well, some seriously twisty roads. Here's where the story turns tragic. The road where Lisa's crash happened is famous for sharp bends and curves that demand your full attention while driving. Unfortunately, on that particular curve, Lisa lost control of her SUV. Eyewitness accounts and reports suggest she may have swerved suddenly, some say, to avoid a dog or some other obstacle on the road, but whatever the cause, the vehicle flipped multiple times. When we say flipped, we mean it rolled over at least 2 or 3 times before coming to a stop. The force was so intense that the SUV was left badly damaged, a brutal reminder of how serious the accident was. Adding to the tragedy, Lisa wasn't wearing a seatbelt when the crash happened. This fact is heartbreaking because seatbelts save lives, and wearing one might have made a difference in how this story ended. But the impact was so severe that Lisa suffered fatal head injuries. She was alone in the car, and despite emergency teams arriving quickly, she was pronounced dead at the scene. Just like that, one of music's brightest lights went out at the young age of 30. What's especially painful about this crash is how sudden and shocking it was. Lisa wasn't involved in any risky behavior like drinking or reckless driving. In fact, she was known to be cautious. The exact details about the cause remain a bit murky, with speculation about the road's condition, possible distraction, or that sudden swerve to avoid something. But the bottom line is that the accident happened in a split second, and the consequences were devastating. The news of Lisa's death spread like wildfire. Fans around the world were devastated, and fellow musicians mourned the loss of an irreplaceable talent. TLC's future was forever changed, and tributes poured in from everywhere, honoring her creativity, passion, and unforgettable personality. It was clear that Lisa Lopez wasn't just a rapper, she was a force of nature who had touched millions with her music and spirit. In the aftermath, her death sparked conversations about road safety, especially regarding seatbelt use, and the dangers of sharp curves on roads like the ones in Honduras. It was a grim reminder that accidents can happen to anyone, anywhere, even stars with bright futures ahead. Pelle Lindberg was more than just a hockey player. He was a rising star and a trailblazer from Sweden who had made a significant mark in the NHL as the Philadelphia Flyers goaltender. By 1985, at only 26 years old, Pelle had already reached the pinnacle of his career, winning the Vezina Trophy as the league's best goalie, a remarkable achievement for any player, and especially for one so young and far from home. His style was confident and dynamic, earning him respect from teammates, opponents, and fans alike. The hockey world saw him as a promising talent with a bright future ahead, yet behind the glitz of professional sports and accolades, Pelle's life was not without its struggles. On the night of November 9, 1985, after a Flyers team party, Pelle left with 2 friends, driving his powerful Porsche 930 Turbo through the quiet streets of Summerdale, New Jersey. Tragically, Pelle had consumed alcohol that evening, and his blood alcohol level was later measured at .24, well above the legal limit. Around 5:41 a.m. on November 10th, Pelle lost control of his car as he was driving on the wet road, causing the vehicle to spin and strike a guardrail before crashing head-on into a wall near an elementary school. The impact was devastating. Pelle suffered severe head injuries and was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. Despite the medical team's best efforts, Pelle was declared brain dead within hours. His family made the heartbreaking decision to take him off life support the following day, November 11th, 1985. The news of Pelle Lindberg's death sent shockwaves through the NHL and beyond. Here was a young man at the height of his career taken far too soon, leaving teammates, friends, and fans devastated. Lindberg was the first European-born goalie to win the Vezina Trophy, and he had become a symbol of international talent breaking through in a North American sport. His loss was not just personal for those who knew him, it was a profound loss for the hockey community and the sport itself. Pelle's death also brought difficult conversations about the dangers of drinking and driving, especially among athletes who face high-pressure lives and intense schedules. The tragedy underscored the risks and consequences of impaired driving, a message that resonates strongly to this day. The two passengers in the car survived, but sustained serious injuries, and their accounts added further weight to the tragedy. In the aftermath of the crash, the Flyers and the entire hockey world grappled with the loss of a player who was admired not only for his talent, but also for his warmth and character off the ice. In response to this tragic event, the Philadelphia Flyers honored Pelle Lindberg's memory in several ways. His number 31 was retired, ensuring that no other Flyer would wear that number again. The team also established the Pelle Lindberg Memorial Trophy, awarded annually to the most improved player, keeping his legacy alive within the organization. For fans and teammates alike, Pelle's spirit remains a poignant reminder of both incredible talent and the fragility of life. The story of Pelle Lindberg is not just about a talented goalie or a tragic accident. It is about the intersection of promise and vulnerability, the highs of athletic achievement shadowed by the realities of human frailty. It reminds us that behind every helmet and jersey is a person with hopes, struggles, and sometimes devastating mistakes. Though Pelle's career and life were cut short, his impact endures. His pioneering presence as a European star in the NHL opened doors for many who followed, and his memory continues to inspire players and fans. The hockey world still remembers Pelle Lindberg not just for the saves he made or the games he won, but for the life that was tragically lost too soon and the lessons left behind.
John Jones, a 26-year-old thrill-seeker, sets his sights on Nutty Putty Cave in the Utah desert, just outside Salt Lake City. Now, this isn't his first rodeo with caving. He and his brother Josh had explored various caves around Utah before. But Nutty Putty, that was a whole new beast. It was a popular cave, known for being relatively beginner-friendly, with spots like a huge maze and a giant slide that anyone could check out. But it also had some tricky areas, including the infamous birth canal, a narrow squeeze that only the most experienced adventurers dared to tackle. John wasn't alone on this trip. He had a crew of 11, including family and friends, tagging along. While the cave had been closed off for a while due to some accidents, Josh managed to score a special permit, and on November 24, 2009, the group was allowed inside. The rest of the crew stuck to the easy stuff, but John and Josh, they had different plans. Let's find something a bit more challenging, they thought, and off they went to explore the tighter, more intense parts of the cave. They made their way to the birth canal, which was pretty much the tightest squeeze in the entire cave. After successfully navigating that, they found the corkscrew, a winding, twisted tunnel that only the bravest, or most daring, would attempt. Now, 5 years prior, another caver named Brock Clark had gotten stuck in the corkscrew for 14 hours, but John wasn't intimidated. At 6 feet tall and 200 pounds, he figured he'd be fine. Little did he know, he was about to enter uncharted territory. He kept pushing forward, thinking he was still navigating the birth canal, but things quickly went sideways. John slid deeper into the tunnel, his feet kicking as he tried to hold on and push back up. He called out to Josh to stop, and they started trying to figure out how to get him unstuck. John spotted a hole ahead, thinking it would lead to a larger space, but nope, it was a dead end. And just like that, John was wedged upside down, stuck in an 18 by 10-inch hole. Desperation set in as he screamed for help, but Josh's attempts to pull him out didn't work. After a while, Josh, now exhausted, had to leave to get help, leaving John to hang upside down, the pressure from gravity slowly making things worse. Fast forward 3 hours, and the first rescuer arrives. The team tried using ropes to pull John out, but that didn't work either. They then set up a pulley system, the same kind that had freed Brock Clark years earlier. It took hours, but finally, John was raised enough for the rescuer to make eye contact with him and even give him some Gatorade. Unfortunately, John's legs had turned lifeless and were no longer helping the situation. They seriously considered breaking his legs to get him out, but then Just as they were getting closer to freeing him, disaster struck. The pulley rope snapped, hitting the rescuer in the face and knocking him out cold. As if things weren't crazy enough, John slipped back into the hole, and the team had to spend another hour repairing the pulley system before they could try again. When they finally attempted to pull him out once more, John didn't respond. Panic set in as they realized they couldn't lift him without his assistance. A medic was sent inside the cave to check on John, but by 11:56 p.m. on November 25th, John was declared dead. The cave was closed off with concrete, and a plaque was placed to honor his life. It's a tragic adventure that no one could have predicted. A story of bravery, perseverance, and an unfortunate twist of fate that ended too soon.
Ryan Dunn wasn't just a TV personality or a daredevil stuntman. He was a symbol of a generation that grew up on outrageous humor, bruises turned into entertainment, and the kind of fearlessness that made Jackass a cultural phenomenon. Known for his quick wit, signature beard, and willingness to do just about anything for a laugh, Ryan had a larger-than-life presence. But on June 20th, 2011, that presence was suddenly and tragically silenced, not on a film set, not during a stunt, but in a high-speed car crash that took his life and the life of his friend Zachary Hartwell. It was just after 2:30 a.m. in West Goshen Township, Pennsylvania. Dunn was behind the wheel of his Porsche 911 GT3, a sleek, high-performance machine built for speed. His passenger, Zachary, was a close friend and fellow daredevil in his own right, a former Navy SEAL and production assistant. Just hours before, Ryan had posted a photo of the two of them out drinking, seemingly carefree, smiling. It looked like a normal night out, but it would end in devastation. At a speed estimated between 130 and 140 miles per hour, the car veered off the road, struck a guardrail, plowed through trees, and burst into flames. The wreckage was so severe that the vehicle was barely recognizable. Both men were killed on impact. Dunn was only 34. The aftermath was both shocking and sobering. Toxicology reports revealed that Ryan's blood alcohol level was more than twice the legal limit. It was a deadly combination: speed, alcohol, and a powerful vehicle. Fans who had grown up watching him survive seemingly impossible stunts were suddenly confronted with the brutal reality that no one, not even the most fearless, is invincible. The news hit hard. The entertainment world reeled, and his Jackass co-stars were devastated. Bam Margera, Dunn's longtime best friend, was inconsolable, weeping at the crash site, struggling to process the loss. Social media lit up with tributes, memories, and a collective sense of heartbreak. Ryan wasn't just the guy who pulled ridiculous stunts on screen. He was a loyal friend, a beloved son, and someone who had a genuine, unforgettable presence. But the tragedy also sparked difficult conversations. While many mourned Ryan, others couldn't ignore the harsh truth. Drunk driving had ended not just his life, but someone else's too. It wasn't a prank gone wrong. It wasn't a skit. It was real life with irreversible consequences. And for many fans, especially those who admired his carefree persona, it served as a painful wake-up call. In some ways, Dunn's death marked the end of an era. Jackass had always pushed boundaries between pain and comedy, danger and entertainment. But this was different, this was serious, and this was final. And it forced people to confront the very real risks behind the reckless image that had been so carefully cultivated on screen. Today, Ryan Dunn is remembered with a mix of laughter and sorrow. He made millions laugh with his fearless antics, but his death left a heavy imprint, a reminder that life isn't a stunt show, and that choices, even in the blink of an eye, can change everything. For all the laughs he gave the world, his final lesson was the most serious of all. Ayrton Senna was more than just a Formula One driver. He was a legend whose name still echoes in the racing world decades after his untimely death. Known for his extraordinary talent, relentless determination, and passion for speed, Senna was widely regarded as one of the greatest racing drivers in history. Born in Brazil, he rose quickly through the ranks of motorsport, capturing the imagination of fans around the world with his exceptional skill and fearless driving style. He won 3 Formula One World Championships and was revered not only for his speed, but also for his focus, precision, and ability to perform under immense pressure. The 1994 San Marino Grand Prix was meant to be another milestone in his remarkable career, but turned into a heartbreaking tragedy that shocked the entire world. The weekend was already overshadowed by the death of Austrian driver Roland Ratzenberger in qualifying, a grim reminder of the sport's inherent dangers. Despite the somber mood, the race went ahead with Senna determined to push for victory. As he drove his Williams FW16 around the Imola circuit, Senna was focused on the task ahead, unaware that this race would be his last. On the 7th lap of the race, disaster struck at the high-speed Tamburello corner, one of the most challenging sections of the Imola circuit. Senna's car suddenly left the racing line and crashed into the concrete wall at a speed estimated around 135 miles per hour. The impact was severe and instantly raised alarms across the paddock. The crash caused a piece of the suspension to break off and strike Senna's helmet, resulting in fatal head injuries. Medical teams responded quickly and Senna was rushed to a nearby hospital, but despite the best efforts, he was pronounced dead a few hours later. The news sent shockwaves throughout the motorsport community and beyond. Ayrton Senna was not just a racing champion. He was a national hero in Brazil and an inspiration to millions around the globe. His death marked one of the darkest days in Formula One history and forced the sport to confront its safety shortcomings in a very urgent way. The tragedy highlighted how dangerous racing could be even for the most skilled and experienced drivers and sparked a series of changes that transformed Formula One forever. In the years following Senna's death, Formula One implemented major safety reforms aimed at preventing such tragedies from happening again. Circuits were redesigned to include more runoff areas and safer barriers, and car designs were improved to provide better protection to drivers during crashes. New regulations were introduced to enhance the structural integrity of racing cars and improve driver safety equipment. Beyond the technical changes, Senna's passing inspired a cultural shift within the sport, emphasizing the importance of safety alongside competition. His legacy extends beyond his remarkable achievements on the track. He was also known for his humanitarian work and his efforts to help underprivileged children in Brazil. Ayrton Senna's life and death left an indelible mark on Formula One and motorsport as a whole. While his death was a heartbreaking loss, it became a catalyst for progress that has saved many lives since. Senna remains an enduring symbol of excellence, passion, and courage, a reminder of both the risks and rewards of pushing the limits in the pursuit of greatness.
On a chilly afternoon around 3:45 p.m. on November 28, 1985, 7 adventurous souls decided to ditch turkey leftovers and go for something a bit more extreme, caving. Their original plan was to explore Freyr's Hole, but thanks to some not-so-friendly rain flooding the place, they switched gears and chose Fuller's entrance of the Culverson Creek Cave in Greenbrier County, West Virginia. Sounds like a safe plan B, right? Well, not exactly. Here's the thing. None of the group had ever been in Fuller's before. You know, just a casual spelunk in unfamiliar territory. What could go wrong? The entrance of the cave was a narrow canyon, only about 5 to 8 feet wide, with a fast-flowing stream, about 6 to 12 inches deep, gushing over wobbly rock slabs. Not exactly a 5-star hiking trail. Roughly 50 feet in, the path sloped downward, and smack dab in the middle of it all sat a hefty boulder, chilling in the stream like it owned the place. At 3:50 p.m., 3 of the cavers made it past the boulder with no issues. The next trio followed, led by 26-year-old Eric Sackley. But when Eric got to the center of that giant rock, Mother Nature decided to throw a curveball. With a sudden shift, the boulder tilted left, like it had just remembered an appointment, and pinned Eric's head in a horrifying upright position. His friends immediately jumped into action. One sprinted back to get help while the rest tried to free him. 4 people against 1 rock? The rock wasn't budging. It was basically saying, "Nice try." Thinking quickly, one caver supported Eric from below to keep pressure off his neck, while the others rummaged through the cave entrance, MacGyver style, searching for anything that could work as a lever. Someone found old truck parts, because of course there's random truck debris in a cave, but even that wasn't enough muscle to lift the boulder. So, another caver was sent out to grab a hydraulic auto jack, a car jack that could lift a small house if needed, and another contacted the Eastern Region Cave Rescue Network. Things were escalating fast. By 4:10 p.m., tragedy deepened. Eric lost consciousness less than half a minute after the rock pinned him. Despite that, at 3:59 p.m., one of the group, John Evans, felt his pulse and it was still going strong. there was hope. Time, however, was not on their side. Around 4:20 p.m., their hero tool, the hydraulic jack, finally made its dramatic entrance. Combined with some trusty crowbars, the team managed to shift the stubborn boulder. They carefully moved Eric about 20 feet to a dry spot and immediately started CPR. The rescue squad from Reynek showed up like cavalry soon after, with a paramedic taking over at 4:29 p.m. Things were looking cautiously optimistic. Eric was rushed out on a stretcher and whisked away by ambulance to the hospital. On the way, medical pros tried everything: IVs, cardiac meds, the whole 9 yards. But despite all the efforts, nothing could bring him back. Eric Sackley was officially pronounced dead at 6:05 p.m. It was a heartbreaking end to what started as an adventurous detour. The story of Culverson Creek Cave is a somber reminder that even the boldest of explorers face real dangers in the deep unknown. One misstep, or in this case one shifting boulder, can change everything in seconds.
General George S. Patton was one of the most celebrated and formidable military leaders of World War II. Known for his aggressive tactics, fiery speeches, and fearless leadership, Patton played a pivotal role in many of the Allies' major victories. His reputation as a bold and sometimes controversial figure preceded him, and he was often seen as the embodiment of American military strength and determination. After the war ended in Europe in 1945, many expected Patton to continue influencing the military and political landscape. However, his life was cut short in a tragic accident that shocked the world and left a lasting mark on history. On December 9, 1945, Patton was traveling near Mannheim, Germany. He was in his personal Cadillac, a vehicle he famously preferred because it symbolized his style and status. The war was over, but Patton remained deeply involved in overseeing the post-war occupation and the reorganization of American forces in Europe. While driving on a road near the city, Patton's car collided with an American Army truck. The crash was severe, and Patton sustained catastrophic injuries. He suffered a broken neck and a spinal cord injury that left him paralyzed from the neck down. For a man known for his robust energy, physical fitness, and commanding presence on the battlefield, this was a devastating and ironic turn of fate. After the accident, Patton was rushed to a military hospital where he received the best medical care available at the time. Despite the efforts of doctors and surgeons, the extent of his injuries meant that his condition was extremely serious. Patton was unable to move or speak clearly, trapped in a body that no longer obeyed his commands. As days passed, his health deteriorated further due to complications common in such severe spinal injuries. He developed a pulmonary embolism, which is a blood clot that travels to the lungs and can be fatal. This complication ultimately caused his death on December 21, 1945, just 12 days after the accident. Patton was 60 years old. The news of his death stunned the public and military community alike. Patton had survived some of the most brutal battles in history, facing enemy fire and life-threatening situations repeatedly. Yet he died not in combat, but because of a peacetime traffic accident. This unexpected outcome led to widespread disbelief and sadness. The general's death also sparked numerous conspiracy theories. Some speculated that Patton was assassinated because of his outspoken criticism of Allied post-war policies, especially his distrust of the Soviet Union and his desire to continue military actions against them. Others suggested covert government plots or political motives behind his death. However, no credible evidence has ever been found to support these claims. The official conclusion remains that his death was the result of a tragic accident compounded by medical complications. Patton's passing marked the end of an era in military leadership. He was among the last generals to personify the aggressive frontline command style that defined World War II's ground campaigns. His leadership was often direct and demanding, inspiring fierce loyalty from some soldiers while earning criticism from others for his temper and strict discipline. After Patton, the U.S. military began evolving towards more strategic and technology-driven approaches, but his legacy of boldness and determination continued to influence military culture. The funeral for General Patton was held with full military honors, a testament to his immense contributions and iconic status. Leaders, soldiers, and civilians alike came to pay their respects to a man who had become a symbol of courage and resolve. His life story, filled with victories, controversies, and an untimely death, remains a compelling chapter in American history. Reflecting on Patton's life and death, one cannot help but acknowledge the unpredictability of fate. Despite his formidable strength and remarkable achievements, his life was ended abruptly by circumstances far removed from the battlefield. His story reminds us that even those who seem invincible are vulnerable, and that sometimes life's greatest challenges come when we least expect them. General George S. Patton's legacy endures not only through his military successes, but also through the human story of resilience, tragedy, and the fragile nature of life. Dale Earnhardt Sr. was more than just a NASCAR driver. He was a living legend. Known as the Intimidator, his fearless driving style and relentless competitiveness made him one of the most iconic figures in motorsports history. On February 18, 2001, during the final lap of the Daytona 500, tragedy struck that not only shocked the racing world but forever changed the future of NASCAR safety. As the race reached its climax, Earnhardt was running third, tucked tightly behind the leaders. The speed was blistering, cars pushing beyond 180 miles per hour as they battled for victory. In those final moments, Earnhardt's car made contact with Sterling Marlin's vehicle, which unsettled his steering. Simultaneously, Michael Waltrip and Ken Schrader were in the thick of the pack just ahead. Earnhardt's car then veered sharply to the right and slammed headfirst into the outside wall in turn 4. The impact was violent and immediate, leaving Earnhardt motionless behind the wheel. Emergency crews responded swiftly, but despite their best efforts, Dale Earnhardt was pronounced dead from a basilar skull fracture, a fatal injury to the base of the skull caused by the violent motion of the crash. At 49 years old, the loss of a driver so beloved by fans and peers alike was a devastating blow to the sport. The moment was broadcast live, and millions watched in stunned silence as news of his death spread. Earnhardt's passing marked the first death of a driver in a NASCAR Cup Series race in over a decade, and reminded everyone just how perilous high-speed racing can be. In the wake of Earnhardt's tragic death, NASCAR faced a reckoning about driver safety. The sport immediately launched investigations into the crash and safety measures in place at the time. One of the most glaring issues was the absence of widespread use of the head and neck support device, which was designed to prevent fatal head and neck injuries during crashes. Earnhardt was among many drivers who had not adopted this safety technology, which today is mandatory in nearly every major racing series around the world. NASCAR also accelerated the development and installation of safer barriers, specialized walls that absorb and reduce the force of impacts when cars collide with the track boundaries. Prior to this, many tracks had unforgiving concrete walls that offered little protection. In addition, the cars themselves underwent significant redesigns, including better seat harnesses and improved roll cages to increase driver protection. NASCAR also improved medical response protocols and emergency training for track personnel to ensure faster and more effective treatment in the event of crashes. The culture around safety shifted dramatically, with drivers, teams, and officials embracing these changes not just as necessary precautions, but as vital elements of the sport's future. These reforms were instrumental in preventing fatal crashes and have been credited with saving many lives in the years since. Dale Earnhardt Sr.'s death became a turning point in NASCAR history, sparking a legacy that extends far beyond his racing achievements. His loss was deeply felt by fans, fellow drivers, and the entire motorsport community, but it also ignited a commitment to prioritize driver safety like never before. Since the implementation of these safety measures, NASCAR has remarkably gone without a driver fatality in its top 3 national series, a testament to the effectiveness of the reforms that followed. Earnhardt's legacy now lives on not only in the records he set and the unforgettable moments he created on the track, but in every driver whose life has been protected because of the lessons learned from his tragic crash. The 2001 Daytona 500 was more than just a race. It was a pivotal moment where the sport came face to face with its vulnerabilities and chose to evolve. Honoring Dale Earnhardt means remembering the cost of pushing the limits and recognizing the progress made to keep those limits from becoming deadly. His story serves as a sober reminder of the risks drivers face and the continuous need for innovation in safety. In the end, Dale Earnhardt's legacy is one of both greatness and hope, a reminder that even in tragedy, there can be a powerful drive toward a safer, better future in racing.
March the 26th, 2016. Cue the dramatic music because today's the day 2 elite-level cave divers, Mike Young and Shane Thompson, yep, a legit Navy vet, gear up for an underwater odyssey in the not-so-friendly absolutely mysterious Santa Rosa Blue Hole in New Mexico. This place isn't some lazy river amusement ride. It's more like Mother Nature's underwater funhouse with a dark past. You see, the Blue Hole got shut down way back in 1976 after 2 divers tragically met their end in its depths. For 40 years it remained sealed, undisturbed, and haunting. That is, until a team of 10 brave souls said, "Let's open Pandora's swimming pool again," and dove right in. For the first 2 days, things went fairly smoothly. The team poked around the tunnels like deep-sea detectives, mapping out areas no one had seen for decades. But day 3, that was the real adventure. Mike and Shayne had one job: explore a super-tight tunnel at 140 feet and then, if they still had wiggle room, literally, check out another squeeze at 165 feet. The plan was clear. Mike would go through the tightest bits solo, and Shayne would chill at 165 feet and wait. Mike, doing his best impression of a contortionist submarine, twisted and squirmed his way through the rock-filled passages like he was auditioning for an underwater yoga class. Meanwhile, Shayne was supposed to sit tight, but curiosity, that old troublemaker, got the best of him. Whether it was FOMO or the thrill of the unknown, Shayne broke formation and followed Mike into the depths, completely against the plan, creeping along, dodging boulders and sliding through twisty, claustrophobic turns. Shayne eventually hit a silt-filled 3-foot opening. That's when things got real dicey. His back-mounted rebreather caught on a protruding rock. He flailed, twisted, tried to Houdini his way out, but nothing worked. He was stuck, and the clock was ticking. Suddenly, whack, Mike's arm smacked into Shayne's head. Boom, underwater reunion. Nearly 200 feet down, they locked eyes. Shayne blurted out, "Bro, I'm stuck." Mike, cool as ever, pulled off some deep-sea hero moves and freed Shayne like a pro. But in the chaos, their only lifeline, the precious guideline, got nudged out of place. Whoops. Mike was now alone in a rock maze with no GPS. Meanwhile, Shayne, still running on panic mode, bolted ahead and got tangled in the line. He freed himself, sure, but also lost it. Now, floating alone with no direction and anxiety spiking, he started hyperventilating, which is exactly what you don't want when using a rebreather. Enter Mike again, like Aquaman with better timing, grabs Shayne and tries to guide him out. But then Shayne, in full-blown panic, dives under Mike and gets stuck again. In the frantic struggle, he kicks Mike square in the face, shreds his suit, and leaves him soaked with 52 degrees Fahrenheit water. Not exactly the buddy system. Shayne, now on his emergency air tank, charges ahead, only to get trapped a third time. Mike, thinking his partner was ahead, follows the line, until he realizes Shayne's missing. His heart drops. He backtracks and finds Shayne wedged in a narrow gap. Gear in tatters, mouthpiece out, tank empty. It was too late. Mike tried to save him, but there was nothing more he could do. With a heavy heart, he swam out alone to report the tragedy. The next day, he returned by himself, navigating the treacherous boulder field again, not just to retrieve a body, but to honor a friend lost in the deep.
If you thought old Hollywood was all glitz and glamour, wait till you hear about Jayne Mansfield, the woman who could turn heads just by walking into a room or crashing through a pile of photographers. Jayne was not just another blonde bombshell in the Marilyn Monroe mold. She was. Marilyn cranked up to 11 with a love for dramatic entrances, outrageous publicity stunts, and a personality as big as her beehive. In the 1950s and early 60s, she was everywhere, starring in films splashed across tabloids and making waves with her signature look-at-me attitude. She was a master at grabbing attention and was always ready to shake things up with a jaw-dropping outfit or a headline-making stunt. But by the mid-60s, the spotlight had started to dim. Movie roles were getting scarcer, and the Hollywood buzz was cooling down. Even so, Jayne was not one to fade quietly away. She kept pushing herself with nightclub performances and television appearances and worked hard to stay in the public eye. It was during one of these late-night gigs that fate would decide to slam the brakes literally. On June 29, 1967, Jayne was traveling through the South in a shiny Buick Electra, making her way from a nightclub show in Mississippi to another engagement in New Orleans. Riding shotgun was her driver, Ronnie Harrison, and in the passenger seat was her boyfriend and lawyer, Sam Brody. The back seat held her 3 kids, including her youngest daughter, Mariska Hargitay, who would one day become a famous actress in her own right. The night was dark and the roads were slick with the kind of fog that was not natural but caused by a truck spraying insecticide to kill mosquitoes and keep the bugs away. This mosquito fog was thick like smoke, and it severely reduced visibility, making it nearly impossible to see what was ahead. At about 2 a.m. near Slidell, Louisiana, the Buick slammed into the back of a slow-moving tractor trailer that had pulled over behind the insecticide truck. The impact was devastating, and the Buick slid underneath the trailer, shearing off the roof of the car in a terrifying scene that looked like something straight out of a disaster movie. Jane, Sam, and Ronnie died instantly, while the children in the back seat miraculously escaped with only minor injuries. The crash sent shockwaves through Hollywood and the world of fans who were stunned by the sudden loss of such a larger-than-life star. Almost immediately, the rumor mill went wild, and one of the most enduring and morbid myths about Jane's death took hold. People claimed that she had been decapitated in the crash, creating an image that was both gruesome and unforgettable. In reality, Jane was not decapitated, though she did suffer severe head trauma. The confusion likely began because one of her famous blonde wigs was thrown from the car during the crash and was found tangled in the wreckage. This wig was mistaken for part of her scalp, and that simple misunderstanding turned into decades of gossip and urban legend. Despite the horror of the crash, the aftermath brought about a practical change in trucking safety. The government required the addition of rear underride guards on tractor trailers, those metal bars you see on the backs of big rigs that prevent cars from sliding underneath in a collision. These safety bars are often called Mansfield bars in her honor, since her tragic accident highlighted the need for better protection. Jayne Mansfield's life may have ended too soon in a shocking way, but her legacy lives on through Hollywood lore, her daughter's successful career, and in the very real improvements to road safety that save lives every day. She was a blazing star who knew how to make an entrance, and even in death, her story continues to captivate and remind us all how fragile and unpredictable life can be. Diogo Jota's sudden death in July 2025 sent shockwaves through the football world and beyond. Known for his incredible speed, skill, and knack for scoring crucial goals, Jota was not just a Liverpool star, but also a beloved figure in Portuguese football. The tragedy unfolded on the A52 motorway in Spain, where Jota was driving a Lamborghini Huracan with his younger brother, Andre Silva. They were returning to England after a brief trip following Jota's recent lung surgery, which had prevented him from flying. Tragically, their journey ended abruptly when a tire on the Lamborghini suddenly blew out while overtaking another vehicle. The car lost control, crashed into the roadside embankment, and burst into flames. Both brothers died instantly at the scene. Investigations later revealed that Jota was driving above the speed limit at the time, a factor that likely contributed to the severity of the crash. Despite his young age of 28, Diogo's life and career were cut short in a heartbreaking accident that underscored the dangers of high-speed driving, especially on unfamiliar roads. The loss was felt deeply by Liverpool FC, his teammates, fans worldwide, and the broader football community. Tributes poured in from every corner. Players, managers, and fans alike mourned the passing of a player whose talent had already made a lasting impact. Beyond the headlines and shock, the accident highlighted the fragile nature of life and how quickly it can change. Jota had been in the prime of his career, recently celebrating milestones with Liverpool and the Portuguese national team. His younger brother Andre, aged 25, was also a rising footballer with a promising future. Their deaths served as a painful reminder of how even the brightest stars can be suddenly extinguished. Liverpool honored Jota by retiring his number 20 shirt, and his boyhood club in Gondomar paid tribute with a special kit to remember both brothers. The tragedy brought the football world together in grief, but also in celebration of the joy and passion Jota brought to the game. While his career was tragically brief, his legacy as a gifted player and beloved teammate will not be forgotten. The story of Diogo Jota is a solemn reflection on talent, loss, and the unpredictable turns life can take, a reminder to cherish every moment on and off the pitch.
On September 17, 2000, brothers Michael and Paul Hayden decided it was time for a little nostalgic adventure, or what some might call a terrible idea wrapped in childhood memories. They headed into Goss Canyon in La Crescenta, Montrose, California. to revisit a cave they had explored many times as kids with their 4 other siblings. This wasn't just any cave. It was like nature's own booby-trapped funhouse, complete with dry ledges, mysterious holes, and a deep, dark water pool that dropped about 100 feet. Because, hey, who doesn't love a little danger with their reminiscing? To get in, they had to squeeze through a cozy little cave mouth about the size of a dishwasher, just 3 by 4 feet, leading to a narrow 50-foot horizontal tunnel. Paul, being the brave one, or maybe just the one with cooler gear, took the lead. And he wasn't your average weekend spelunker. He was a master sergeant and elite scuba diver in the Air Force Pararescue Force. Basically, if anyone could handle this, it was him. He strapped on his scuba gear, enough air for 2 hours, and a GoPro on his head to light the way and record the epic journey. Meanwhile, Michael stayed back by the water pool like the world's most responsible cave lifeguard. The brothers rigged up a rope system, tying one end to a big old boulder in the main cave. Michael would tug the rope occasionally like, "Hey, you good?" And Paul would tug back like, "All good, bro." For the first 20 minutes, it was all smooth sailing, or rather, smooth tugging, but then nothing. Michael gave the rope a double yank. Silence. He tried again. Still nothing. Worse, the rope had gone stiff and immobile. Never a good sign. Thinking Paul might be stuck, Michael gave it everything he had, yanking like his life, or, more accurately, Paul's life, depended on it. When that didn't work, he bolted from the cave faster than a teenager sneaking in past curfew and called in the pros. The local fire department wasted no time. Soon enough, they were joined by the LA Sheriff's Office and the LA Fire Department, rushing to the scene like it was a Hollywood action movie. When rescuers located Paul's GoPro, they reviewed the footage, and what they found was haunting. The video captured the moment Paul reached an abandoned water shaft and removed his regulator to take a breath from an air pocket. Now, here's the thing about air pockets in creepy old caves. They're not exactly spa-quality oxygen bars. These pockets don't circulate fresh air. Instead, they stew in a gross cocktail of decay gases from surrounding soil, rock, and whatever unlucky critters decomposed nearby. Add in gases released from water-eroded stone, and you've got yourself a bubble full of CO2 doom. Even though Paul was a skilled scuba diver, he wasn't a certified cave diver. He knew the risks and usually carried a lighter to test air quality. Light the flame, and if it flickers out, you bail. But that day, he didn't have his lighter. He took a breath anyway, assuming the air would be fine just for a second. It wasn't. The footage ended with Paul slipping beneath the water, making no move to replace his regulator. He passed out instantly, overcome by the toxic air. Within a minute or two, he had drowned, silently, suddenly, and tragically.
Sam Kinison was a force of nature, a comedian whose voice alone could fill a room and whose energy was impossible to ignore. Known for his screaming, intense style, he carved a unique niche in the world of stand-up comedy during the late 1980s and early 1990s. But behind that loud, wild persona was a complex man who had gone from being a preacher to one of the most memorable and controversial comedians of his time. Sadly, his life was cut short in a tragic car crash in 1992, ending the career of a man who had so much more to offer. On April 10, 1992, near Needles, California, Kinison's life came to a sudden and tragic end. He was driving his 1989 Pontiac Turbo Trans Am on the highway when his car crossed over into the opposite lane and collided head-on with a pickup truck driven by a 16-year-old driver. The collision was fatal, and Kinison died instantly at the scene. The exact cause of the accident remains unclear, with questions about whether it was due to speed, driver error, or other factors. Regardless of the details, the result was devastating not just for those involved, but for fans and the entertainment world as a whole. Kinison's death came as a shock. He was at the height of his career, a time when many comedians might have been settling into their fame, but he was still pushing boundaries. His comedy wasn't for everyone. His screaming, raw style was polarizing, but there was no denying his impact. He brought a kind of honest, sometimes painful energy to the stage, exploring topics like love, heartbreak, and frustration in a way few others dared. His background as a preacher gave him a unique edge, mixing religious themes with his explosive delivery to create a brand of comedy that was as intense as it was hilarious. The accident itself was tragic, not only because of Kinison's death, but also because it involved a teenager behind the wheel of the pickup truck. The collision was sudden and severe, a stark reminder of how fragile life can be, no matter how loud or bold you are. For someone like Kinison, who seemed larger than life, it was a harsh reminder that fame and personality cannot shield you from tragedy. In the years since his death, Kinison's legacy has been remembered with a mix of admiration and reflection. His style influenced many comedians who followed, especially those who combine vulnerability with raw, emotional intensity. He was never just a loud guy yelling jokes. He was a man who used his voice to express frustration, pain, and humor all at once. The suddenness of his passing only added to the mythos around him, a cautionary tale of a life lived fast and a career cut short. Kinison's death also highlights a broader truth about the risks we take, whether on the road or in life. Accidents can happen in a split second, and sometimes even the biggest personalities can be vulnerable. The details of the crash may never be fully known, but the loss is deeply felt. For fans, colleagues, and family, it was the end of an era and a painful reminder of the unpredictability of life. Anton Yelchin's tragic death in 2016 sent shockwaves through Hollywood and beyond, serving as a sobering reminder of how even everyday objects like a car can unexpectedly become deadly. Yelchin, a talented young actor beloved for his role as Pavel Chekhov in the modern Star Trek films, lost his life in what seemed at first glance to be a bizarre and tragic accident right outside his own home in Studio City, California. On the afternoon of June 19, 2016, Yelchin was pinned between his own 2015 Jeep Grand Cherokee and a brick mailbox pillar after the vehicle mysteriously rolled backward down his steep driveway. It was a low-speed, silent incident that ended a promising life at just 27 years old. The heartbreaking nature of this accident was not just in the loss of such a bright star, but also in the strange circumstances that made it possible. The Jeep Grand Cherokee involved was one of the vehicles under recall due to a serious safety defect related to its gear selector design. Unlike traditional shifters, this Jeep model featured a monostable electronic gear shifter, a shift-by-wire system that always returned to a central position after changing gears, rather than staying visibly set on park, reverse, or drive. This unusual design caused confusion among drivers, who might believe the car was safely parked when in fact it was still in gear and capable of rolling away. In Yelchin's case, investigators concluded that the vehicle rolled back down the incline of his driveway after he exited, trapping him between the car and the mailbox. The official cause of death was blunt traumatic asphyxia, a condition resulting from the crushing force that prevented him from breathing. The situation was made worse by the fact that the Jeep's recall for the gear selector issue had been issued just a couple of months prior to the accident. The recall affected over 1 million Jeep Grand Cherokees and Dodge Durangos, but many owners, including Yelchin, had not yet had the chance to get the problem fixed. This tragic timing added a layer of frustration and sadness to the case. The accident brought intense scrutiny to Jeep's design choices and raised broader questions about vehicle safety standards. Many critics and safety advocates pointed to the confusing gear selector as a major factor that had already led to multiple rollaway incidents before Yelchin's death. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration had investigated and pushed for recalls, but incidents kept happening, spotlighting how critical timely communication and repairs are in preventing tragedies. Beyond the technical and legal aspects, Yelchin's death was deeply felt by fans, friends, and family. He was known not only for his charismatic performances on screen, but also for his kindness and creative spirit. Tributes poured in from colleagues across the entertainment industry who mourned the loss of a young actor who had so much more to offer. His parents later filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Fiat Chrysler, the parent company of Jeep, arguing that the company's negligence regarding the recall contributed to their son's death. The lawsuit was settled confidentially in 2018, but the case highlighted the broader implications of corporate responsibility when it comes to product safety. Yelchin's death was a wake-up call that vehicle technology, especially newer electronic systems, must be designed with clarity and safety as paramount. It also underscored the importance of swift action when safety defects are discovered. Though no legal settlement or recall can bring him back, The tragedy sparked increased awareness about the potential dangers lurking in modern car designs, pushing manufacturers and regulators to rethink how they communicate risks to consumers. Ultimately, Anton Yelchin's passing was a profound loss to the world of film and an important, if painful, lesson in automotive safety. While his roles on screen remain a lasting legacy of his talent, the circumstances of his death remind us that progress in technology must always be matched with vigilance and care. Behind the headlines and investigations is a young man whose life was cut far too short, one whose story continues to resonate as both a tribute and a cautionary tale.
32-year-old Gregory Wilhelm and his 3 buddies, 2 guys and 2 gals, are living their best vacation life in Maui, Hawaii. They're soaking up the sun, snapping selfies, and doing all the classic touristy stuff. One day, they decide to check out Wayanapanapa State Park. You know, the kind of place that makes you want to launch a travel blog. Everything was going great until it wasn't. While wandering around, the crew stumbled upon the legendary Wayanapanapa Caves. Intrigued and running on vacation adrenaline, the group paused by a serene, well-lit pool at the cave's mouth. The women opted to chill poolside, probably imagining spa vibes, while Gregory, powered by curiosity and maybe a little too much confidence, roped one of the guys into a spontaneous cave exploration mission. Now, they didn't have a flashlight, but Gregory, ever the problem solver, shoved his phone into a Ziploc bag to keep it dry and turned it into an impromptu flashlight. Not exactly Bear Grylls approved, but hey, it worked for a while. So, Gregory and his fellow explorer waded into the cave like it was the beginning of a treasure-hunting adventure. A few feet in, the water was already at their waists. Ahead, a massive boulder, and beneath it, a dark, deep pool that apparently was a hotspot for thrill-seeking divers. Naturally, they decided to give it a quick dive. Just a minute underwater, they said. Just a little peek, no big deal. Gregory led the way with his trusty phone light while his buddy followed closely behind. But things took a wild turn when they realized the pool was a lot deeper than expected. Gregory, fueled by that just one more peek energy, swam into a narrow underwater passage. That's when his friend, now absolutely done with this adventure, freaked out and made a silent exit, leaving Gregory solo in the watery abyss. By the time Gregory realized he was on his own, he needed air, badly, but when he turned around, he was met with total darkness. Cue panic mode. He fumbled through the underwater maze and managed to find a tiny pocket of air, like something straight out of an action movie. But the cave was like a living creature, unpredictable and wild. Waves thrashed, currents shifted, and the clock was ticking. With no choice, Gregory pushed deeper into the cave. Meanwhile, the guy who bailed managed to find his way back to the surface, gasping for breath at the pool's edge. Gregory, however, was MIA. Panic spread fast. The 2 women dashed into the cave, talk about bravery, found the guy totally freaking out, and knew things were serious. The guy, guilt now fully unlocked, dove back into the cave, telling the women to scream so he could use their voices like human GPS. After a couple failed dives, he finally spotted something, a faint glow in the distance. It was Gregory's phone, still valiantly shining, but Gregory? Nowhere in sight. They sprinted out and called the Hana Fire Department, kicking off a full-blown rescue operation. Sadly, by the time help arrived, it was too late. Reports revealed Gregory had lost his bearings in a tight spot. The more he tried to escape, the more disoriented he became. Eventually, he took a wrong turn, and his breath ran out in the cave's suffocating darkness.